Welcome to Cinemapile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Kaspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemaphilepod.com. A Paradise Lost is the tale of a small bird hailing from the extinction capital of the world, the Hawaiian Islands, where an endangered animal sued humans for the first time to prevent their own extinction, told from the point of view of a stuffed yellow finch who physically stood in the courtroom as the lead plaintiff in Palila versus Hawaii, a landmark lawsuit that proved harm was caused to native forest by introduced sheep in an effort to protect their last stronghold on a sacred mountain. The film is part documentary, live action, and part animation. It's very effective in telling the story that we all should know more about, which is the harm we're doing as a species to the animal kingdom and to our environment, and we must begin to hold ourselves accountable. Once again, the film is called A Paradise Lost, and we're honored to have with us today the director and producer, Laurie Sumiye. Laurie, welcome to Cinemafile.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate your, paying attention to my little bird movie.
Well, your little bird movie, as you put it, is quite powerful and effective in conveying to the audience what is at stake here. And your film, in some ways, and I don't want to overstate this, but watching A Paradise Lost reminded me of a film that I saw a couple of years ago with Sam Green's film 32 Sounds. And one of the things in it was a collection of different sounds and how we react to them and how important they are, how sound is important to us. And one of the sounds that is in the film is the o'o, a bird mating call, was said to be the saddest sound of all time because the o'o is calling out to the one last lover, the one last opportunity for them to survive, and hearing nothing in return just tears me up even to this day when I hear it and when I think about it. And your film feels like potentially some version of that. It's what's happening to the Palila in your film, A Paradise Lost.
Yeah, Palila, like the Hawaiian words are a little tricky. But yeah, the Palila. Yeah. So the interesting thing with a lot of Hawaiian birds, you probably might be able to guess, but the Hawaiian bird names are the sound of their call. So the o'o makes o'o sounds, and there's one called the ua'u that makes ua'u, so the sound of the bird is actually the name, and Palila is the transliteration of their call. So I don't think it sounds like Palila, but yeah, so we have been I've been doing work with Hawaiian birds for some time, so I'm familiar with the stories of many of them, but this particular one was just fascinating because they brought a bird to court and it sued, and it was successful, but it took years and years of, badgering the state of Hawaii to actually follow through with the court order. And so because the original case, they haven't complied with the original court order, they still might sue for a seventh time. So they've sued 6 times. And Earth Justice is just kind of checking in I call the attorney who's working on it just to say, how is it going? Because until they comply with the actual court order, like the case is still open. So it's been over 40 years now.
This was the first time that
Yes.
an animal had sued for its right to exist, essentially.
Yep. And it won. And it won. Like, handily. It wasn't even close.
Which is encouraging. Wonderful things about A Paradise Lost is that we see the different issues in play on Mauna Kea and the environmental impacts of hunting, of colonization. There's just so many things that you are able to give us a good look into why and how and where we're going with this. And this is in many ways a microcosm of so much of the rest of the world and what we I believe are looking at right now as we sit here today in 2026. We're staring at climate change in full bloom or
Yep.
beginning to. Yeah, this is a great primer for that.
Yeah, and I want to say that one of the things that I would say, because I've watched many of the extinction documentaries of different species, I'm familiar with a lot of the indigenous struggles that are connected to environmental, resources like water and land. And it was important for me to project into the future of what that looks like because most conservation work takes so long. And everyone said we won't know if the things that we do now are going to be successful until 50 years. And so that was like, okay, well, I think I might need to show people what does it look like in 50 years? Like, what might that be? Because they won't see, in their lifetime, they're not going to see the results of the work. They don't know. And that's hoping things turn out right. Like you plant a tree and you hope 50 years later, this bird can use the tree if it's still around. And that's something I thought was a very poignant, like, you plant a tree for the person that you don't know yet, kind of metaphor, I think. And so that is something I wanted to put in the film with a little bit of science fiction to get us to imagine what that might be and have a space for imagining. I think that was important for me to put in the film because the present moment obviously is what I can document, it's what I can show, but because the truth of when we do work now, like where does that go? That is really hard to do in a documentary to kind of show impact or an outcome that will not be resolved. And they have hopes, but it's really hard to expect when something goes extinct or not go extinct. I've kind of dug pretty deep into even the listing, the IUCN, when they consider something extinct. It's a whole process of when they declare something extinct. I think it's like at least 10 years that they don't see it or something like that. And they have to document like this thing is definitely not there anymore, even if the scientist knows like it's gone, but they can't like put it on the list as saying it's extinct. It's quite a drawn out process. And then I guess there's some species that they say are extinct, like, and then they come back and they find like one specimen randomly somewhere. So
Yeah.
that was something I kind of was trying to figure out how to put in the film because extinction is so difficult to show.
Well, I imagine there's degrees of extinction. There's practical extinction, which is,
Yep.
and then there is an actual extinction, right? So
Yes, the
practically
functional
speaking,
extinction.
they
Yep.
cannot reproduce quickly enough to stave off
Correct.
the
Yep.
inevitability of it.
Yes.
One of the great things about the way you tell the story is we
Hmm.
open with animation. Kind
Hmm.
of gets us into that the mode of understanding
Yep.
what is happening, and also allows the latitude as a storyteller to bring in other elements that you're going to be talking about over the course of the film. And in many ways, it softens the blow of what we're going to be seeing for much of the film, which is not very, generally speaking, not very happy. But nonetheless, it's just done in such a way that pulls it. I'm as an audience, as a member of the audience, pulls you into the story. I just want to go back to the core sort of the story of suing,
Hmm.
bringing the legal weight to this particular to the story of the Palila, giving that because we see the attorney who brought the case and it ended up. So let's talk because I think it's important to understand in an unreal situation, there is a degree of reality that can be brought to bear, science and the law. Yeah.
Yes. They just came up with the idea of, they said if we're going to make it a plaintiff, like we may as well have the bird in the courtroom. And so there is an interesting law that for endangered species, you can't handle them. So if I wanted to take a specimen that's endangered, that's stuffed, I can't bring it into any public space. Like it's not legal. And the reason they do that is they don't want the trade of stuffed specimens to become a problem. And so the only people who are allowed to transport specimens outside museums are curators. So the curator of the Bishop Museum physically would bring the bird to court. Every day they were in court for the week, and then they would bring it back to the museum. But no one else is allowed to carry it because it's an endangered species and it's not legal for them to handle it. And so that was something that he did every day, and he brought it to court. His the client to court, and then the judge was like really into it, and he thought it was really interesting. The news really thought it was kind of interesting, and so they had shots of the bird in the news story that is in the movie. And yeah, it became kind of a thing locally. You know, they did news articles about it, but I also feel it really drives home like who it's affecting, right? It's like obviously humans have to litigate on behalf of it, but conceptually, like this is who's affected by the lawsuit directly.
It was creative and it was interesting, provocative in some ways, but at the same time, it was effective. And I think for a judge or anyone who would be sitting there to sort of decide the fate.
Hmm.
And this really had to do with the issues around the denuding of the forest area where they live, where the Kalia
Yeah.
live, how that was manifesting itself in their environment. And so, well, what else we see in the film that is very effective are the experts, the people on the ground who are trying to maintain the habitat.
And I think what's critically different from like in Hawaii compared to the mainland, so when you have hunting areas in anywhere on the continent, the animals that are living in those areas are from those forests. So if it's a moose or a deer, like those forests have co-evolved with those game animals, and so the native species that are there are game animals. But because Hawaii didn't have any hunting animals, they imported all of them. So they're all imported from elsewhere. And so that's the main issue compared to elsewhere, why it's so damaging to Hawaiian forests, because the Hawaiian forest did not co-evolve with sheep, goats, even pigs that live in the forests. And they've imported all those animals only for hunting. So when hunters said, I want to go hunting, they had to literally, and they have game birds as well. And none of them are from Hawaii. And so they're especially harsh on the flora because those plants are not used to being nibbled on. And so that's primarily why the issues with hunters is so much stronger because we won't have a tree in North America that a deer is nibbling on that isn't used to being eaten. You know, it has natural defenses and it can grow back because it's used to having a deer eat it. So that's primarily why there was much more contentiousness between hunters, because typically hunters are very pro-forest and they are part of conservation work elsewhere. But yeah, they're constantly fighting with the environmentalists in Hawaii because having any animals there is destroying what's native.
There's many examples of how this has played out in the same way it's playing out here. So
Hmm.
that there's a history, there's something of a science that they can determine. There are many islands and places around the world that have been ruined
Yes.
by animals who were introduced into the
Yep.
environment that
Yep.
before. So that is again, that's an important part of telling this story.
Yes.
And but also you get a perspective from the hunter's point of view. And I think some of what has happened was unintended consequences.
Correct.
So they are in tune with the environment. There's a number of people in the film who I wouldn't, they are empathetic to what's happening.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I really truly enjoyed and would tell anyone who wanted to know that Paradise Lost is, to my mind, a very balanced approach to this issue, to this story.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's also illustrative of so much more about our future as well.
Yes. Yes. People have asked me, like, is my goal to save Palila? And I said no, because I don't think that's like the only reason this film should exist. It's really about connecting it to what's close to where you live that might be in the same situation and that you just don't know about. And I think having connection to the land in the places that you call home and that connection to nature is what I hope people take away. Because when you take care of the nature that is where you call your home and you know the names of the plants, you know the names of the animals, you know how they contribute to the ecosystem and the health of the air that you breathe, right? Like, I think all of those things mean you appreciate those things a little more because you can't survive without that. You know, everyone needs water, everyone needs air, clean air. And those things in nature provide those things for us, whether we know it or not. So,
I just want to remind our listeners we're speaking with Laurie Sumiye. She is the director of Paradise Lost. It will be screening in New York City at John Alpert's Firehouse Cinema, and that would be on is that the July 31st through August 6th?
correct.
And
Yes.
then it will be playing here in Los Angeles beginning on what looks like that's Sunday, August 2nd and Tuesday, August 4th at the Now Instant Theater and the Laemmle Royal. Be sure to check that out. What's been the reaction to festival run? You had a festival
Yeah,
run with
we
this
have
film?
we've presented at some festivals, and I would say, it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think people are really surprised of where it lands, because the protagonist is a bird that I had to write, a script for, but I also have people who are real in the film that reflect on the story that I don't think people expect that's where it lands. And to be honest, like I had finished filming in 2019, and because it was taking a long time to do the animation, one of my friends suggested that I go back in 2024 to interview them to see what's up, because she's like, well, they're going to want to know, what's going on now, because it had been long enough since
Hmm.
I had filmed. And that's when I had to redo the entire ending of the film because it was really bad. And
Yeah.
it got worse. And so I had to change the ending when I shot in 2024 with the people I'd been working with, and I just reorganized and rethink the whole film because the tone of it was completely different. And so as an editor, I was like, okay, well, we'll figure this out. But I think it's a stronger film, and I think it's a more complex, interesting film because of that ending now. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know what they would look like before, but it is a powerful film. I can testify to that. It's a very powerful film, and it's done in seasons. I think that
yes.
was one way to sort of delineate the journey we were on and the resiliency of the people who are dedicated to preserving the Palila in their habitat is encouraging and heartening for all
Hmm.
of us. I'm almost afraid to ask where we are in 2026, but there was a bit of a rebound. I will say, I
Yes.
don't want to give away too much here, but
Hmm.
there's certainly some encouraging signs we can say
Yeah.
about it. And hopefully we will continue. And as we were talking before we got started, I do believe the indigenous peoples of the world can, if we allow them to show us a way forward, because we're heading for some dark times, and we need to know that there is hope. There is a
Hmm.
way forward because I think we've already lit the fuse, and we're going to have
Yep.
to figure out a way to get past it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I'm really fortunate that, the person that they happened to hire to lead the Palila project, because I worked with the person who had the job before, but at the time we were filming, he had just gotten hired. Like I literally was at the Palila count and it was his second day on the job. And Kala, he just happens to be native Hawaiian, and his family's from that mountain, the
yeah,
volcano. Like they grew like 14 generations of native Hawaiians stewarding that mountain. He has a very special relationship to Mauna Kea, and he's deeply committed to, not just his job, but like his responsibilities as a native Hawaiian in a way that I had no idea. I did not know like that was going to unfold, as I got to know him and work with him. And he brought so much of his own like family and like how he sees himself as being responsible to not just the job at hand that he gets paid to do, but as for his family and for his the progeny that he doesn't know. Like he so deeply articulates it extremely well. Like, I've interviewed a
yeah,
lot of folks and he just says it so well and really beautifully and just lives it, And so we really lucked out that he was the person they hired for that job at the time
yeah,
we were filming,
yeah.
and that he was willing to share, not just the planting of the things, but, how he thinks of the work meaningfully for his children. That was something that we were not planning. It sort of unfolded, and they ended up being in a lot of the shoots. So we were just kind of lean into it. And then, now they're all grown up. I saw them at a screening in Hawaii, and they're the little baby. They're grown up, and so it's really sweet to see that progress, but also just knowing that he's not gonna stop. Like he's gonna do this job until he retires, I think. And his daughter, is super into plants and birds, so I feel like she's gonna take over from what he does. And this is what Hawaiians have always done is generations of stewarding the land within a family and the ancestral connections to those places. So, we were just so lucky that he was who I ended up working with. Like there was nobody else to work with Palila. Like he was it.
He is great, and in that role, and as a person, you get to know him and his extended family, his own family, etc. There's so many different places where it feels like he is kind of a sage.
Mhm.
I'll call it spiritual. the
Yes.
connection to the land, metaphysical, existential, whatever you want to call it. He is a part of what will make this work moving
Yes.
forward, and part of the solution, part of the legacy, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I'm thrilled that you found him because he does provide that through line in the film that,
Yeah, and
uh,
it's very unusual to have a Native Hawaiian in that lead position and to bring all the protocol. That's not, I would say that's not very common in these projects with, conservation, but because he has all the training, he has the knowledge to do the chants, to do the protocol. Like that's not something that all Hawaiian projects do. Like that's what something he specifically does for Palila that he chose to do, and like he planned all that. Like that was something I no one has ever filmed or done because it's such a novel position for someone to say this is important and we have to release the birds like this. That was something that he wanted and
yeah.
coordinated because they'd done releases before, but they just opened the thing and they went out. And so for us to be able to film that and there's just so much preparation on his part to make it really special.
Well,
Yeah.
what I was struck by in that part of the film was maintaining and leaning into the connection between species, between the animals and the land, between us and I just that's the thing that I find in my very limited exposure to truly indigenous peoples around the world is the land and the maintaining and enhancement of the land and the animals,
Mhm.
insects, whatever, all of it, they feel that connection. And yeah, it was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Thank you. But I really feel like he makes it very accessible. Like
Yeah,
it's not like something we do. It's like he's like it's for everyone
yeah.
and for us to share in that experience. So he's very generous. Kalau is incredibly generous in showing that and sharing it with my camera crew and just like, the public that he interacts with.
Yeah. Well, thank you for A Paradise Lost, Laurie Sumiye. It is a wonderful film. Yeah, my congratulations. I certainly hope you're working on more documentaries or whatever filmmaking you choose to embark upon. But that's a wonderful film, and congratulations on that.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate your really interesting conversation that we've had and just curiosity about some of the indigenous pieces. And the Pacific Islander version of it is very unique to Hawaii. And, there's Aboriginal and, Native American on the continent, but the flavor of, our Hawaiian version is really pretty unique and fun. And I'm really grateful that we got to put that in the film too, because, documentaries, it's like you work with what you can shoot and what's there. And, it's like and you have to have the camera on at the right time. So we were really, really fortunate. And I'm grateful for our conversation that I got to share some of that.
Thank you, Laurie. You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.